cleaner sang a lullaby to the boss's son. But when the company owner heard her voice, he was shocked. Clara, a humble cleaner with a secret talent, hides a voice capable of moving anyone. In the corridors of a large industry, she sings to herself, unaware that she is about to be discovered. But this revelation is just the beginning. Clara, a 65-year-old woman, spent her days cleaning the corridors and offices of a large industry. Known to everyone as a dedicated and always smiling cleaner, she had a secret that no one in the company knew. Clara was an excellent singer, a talent she had kept hidden since her youth. Her life was simple and reserved, marked by the constant company of Amarillo, her faithful parrot. Amarillo was a gift from an old friend, the only link Clara maintained with a past full of dreams and disappointments. One morning, while sweeping the floor of one of the meeting rooms, Clara began to hum an old lullaby. The sweet and gentle melody, a legacy from her mother, created an atmosphere of calm and nostalgia. Clara sang to herself to remember simpler times, unaware that she was being heard by some colleagues. Two young employees, Felipe and Ana, who were passing through the corridor, stopped to listen. Surprised, they were captivated by Clara's clear and engaging voice. Felipe, astonished, commented, "Who would have thought that Mrs. Clara had this voice? It's so beautiful and unexpected." Ana, equally impressed, smiled. "Should we tell the others? Maybe she could sing at a company event." The news quickly spread among the workers. Clara, the cleaner, was a talented singer. This discovery sparked new curiosity about Clara's life. Many tried to strike up conversations, asking about her past or suggesting that she sing at company events. However, Clara remained reserved, always changing the subject or avoiding the conversation. She had long decided to keep her talent hidden, a decision made after a series of traumatic events she preferred not to relive. Music was a personal refuge for Clara, a safe space where she could express feelings she didn't share with anyone else, except Amarillo, who always accompanied her with his own chirps. One day, Felipe approached her and, respectfully asked, "Mrs. Clara, why did you never tell us about your voice? We'd love to hear you sing at some event." Clara smiled gently and replied, "Oh, Felipe, some things are just for the heart. Music has always been my secret, my little piece of happiness." Felipe, sensing the sensitivity of the subject, did not insist but was intrigued by the story behind that secret. The truth is that Clara had a life full of ups and downs. In her youth, she dreamed of being a professional singer, but a series of disappointments and a traumatic episode led her to give up that dream. Clara had never shared this with anyone at the company, and seeing her colleagues showing interest in her ability made her uncomfortable. The only one who seemed to fully understand her feelings was Amarillo, who always watched her with attentive eyes, as if sharing her memories and secrets. And so, Clara continued her routine at the industry, trying to ignore the growing attention from her colleagues. She took refuge in the meticulous cleaning of offices and the quiet company of her parrot, who often repeated snippets of the songs she hummed. Despite the friendly environment and the new looks of admiration, Clara knew her life was built on the decision not to risk the world of music again. She preferred the anonymity of her simple work, away from the spotlight and painful memories of the past. But fate sometimes has a peculiar way of bringing us back to the paths we avoid. And for Clara, music seemed to be one of those inevitable paths that insisted on crossing her way, even when she tried to follow a different direction. And this insistence of fate would begin to reveal itself in an unexpected way, challenging Clara to face her old choices and kept secrets. On what seemed to be an ordinary workday, Clara found herself in the office of the administrative manager, Mr. Alberto, a middle-aged man with whom she rarely interacted. As usual, she cleaned quietly, but this time a heated conversation caught her attention. The manager was on the phone, his voice low and filled with concern. Clara, trying not to draw attention, continued with her work but couldn't help overhearing parts of the conversation. "The owner can't find out about this," the manager said, tension evident in his voice. "She's willing to do anything to make this happen. We need to act fast before anyone else finds out." Clara paused for a moment, her heart beating faster. The mention of the owner could only refer to Enrique, the company's owner. Intrigued and worried, Clara continued to listen discreetly. The manager seemed to be talking to Enrique's wife, planning something serious. Clara couldn't hear everything clearly, but words like corruption and money laundering were enough to understand the gravity of the situation. Feeling a mix of fear and urgency, Clara quickly finished her work and left the office unnoticed. She knew what she had heard was dangerous and could put not only her position at the company at risk, but also her safety. However, something inside her compelled her to act. Enrique had always been kind to her, even if distantly, and Clara felt she had a duty to warn him. That afternoon, she waited for the right moment to approach the company owner. When she saw that he was alone in his office, she knocked on the door hesitantly. Enrique looked up, surprised to see Clara, but invited her in. With trembling hands and a low voice, Clara recounted what she had heard. Enrique listened in silence, his face hardening as she revealed the details of the conversation. "Are you sure about this, Clara?" he asked, visibly shaken. Clara confirmed with a nod, her eyes full of concern. Enrique thanked her deeply, promising to investigate the matter. He had no doubt that Clara was telling the truth. The sincerity in her eyes was undeniable. After leaving Enrique's office, Clara felt a weight lift off her shoulders, but at the same time, a new fear settled in. She knew that what she had done could have serious consequences. The manager and Enrique's wife were powerful figures in the company, and if they found out she had said anything, they could seriously harm her. Still, Clara knew she couldn't have remained silent. Her integrity and sense of justice had guided her decision. That night, Clara returned home, once again finding comfort in Amarillo's presence. The parrot, with his attentive and warm gaze, seemed to sense his owner's tension. Clara gently stroked his feathers, feeling a slight tranquility as she heard the soft sounds he made. "You're the only witness to what I did today, Amarillo," she whispered, smiling sadly. "Let's hope everything turns out okay." Meanwhile, Enrique began a discreet investigation. He knew this was a delicate situation and needed to be careful not to alert those involved. However, his trust in Clara and the seriousness of the accusations drove him to seek the truth. Clara's revelation made him reflect on his own safety and the people he trusted in the company. He wondered how many other things might be hidden beneath the surface of an apparently prosperous business. The following days were tense, with Enrique secretly working to piece together the puzzle. Clara, on the other hand, continued her daily routine but with a keen eye on what was happening around her. She knew that, somehow, the truth would come to light, and she was prepared to face the consequences, whatever they might be. The days that followed were filled with great tension for Clara. She continued her work as usual, but there was a new attention around her. The rumor that something serious was happening in the company's administration spread, and Clara felt the curious and sometimes suspicious glances of her colleagues. She knew Enrique was investigating the situation but was unsure of what the outcome would be. One morning, upon arriving at work, Clara was called to Enrique's office. With a tight heart, she entered and found the company owner with a serious but grateful expression. Enrique was sitting at his desk, looking at some papers, but immediately stood up when he saw her enter. "Clara, please have a seat," he said, pointing to a chair in front of his desk. Clara obeyed, feeling a mix of fear and curiosity. Enrique took a deep breath before starting to speak. "First of all, I want to thank you again for coming to me with that information. It was a courageous act." Clara nodded, feeling a little more at ease. Enrique continued, "We conducted an investigation and found enough evidence to confirm that the administrative manager and his wife were indeed involved in illegal activities. They will be dismissed and face legal consequences." A sigh of relief escaped Clara. She hadn't expected this, but the confirmation that she had done the right thing made her feel lighter. Enrique leaned forward, looking her in the eye. "Clara, your gesture went beyond what any employee is required to do. Your integrity is admirable, and for that, I want to offer something in recognition." Clara looked at him, surprised. "I didn't do it expecting a reward, Mr. Enrique. I did it because I felt it was the right thing to do." Enrique smiled slightly. "And that's precisely why you deserve it. I'd like to offer you a promotion to a less demanding position or a financial reward if you prefer. How would you feel about coordinating the cleaning team?" You would have a salary increase and less physical work. Clara considered the offer for a moment but then shook her head. I appreciate it very much, Mr. Enrique, but I prefer to continue as I am. I enjoy my simple work and the routine I have. What I value most is the peace I've found. Enrique observed her, impressed. You're a rare person, Clara. Your humility and honesty are inspiring. If you change your mind, the offer will always be open. After leaving Enrique's office, Clara felt a weight lift off her shoulders, but at the same time, a new sense of vulnerability settled in. The whole situation had made her reflect on her life and choices. She knew that Enrique now saw her with different eyes, not just as an employee, but as a person with a rich and complex story. That night, Clara talked to Amarillo as she always did. Today was a full day, wasn't it, my friend? She said while stroking the parrot's feathers. Amarillo responded with a soft chirp, as if he understood Clara's words. Enrique, on the other hand, also found himself reflecting on his own life. He began to open up more to Clara, revealing concerns and frustrations he had kept to himself. In one of their conversations, he confessed, "Sometimes, I feel like I sacrificed so much for the company that I ended up missing important moments with my family. My mother, especially. I feel like I never gave her the value she deserved while she was alive." Clara, touched by Enrique's sincerity, shared some of her own pains. "I have my own scars too," she said softly. "I left behind dreams and people out of fear and disillusionment, but I've learned to find peace in the small things, like taking care of Amarillo and doing my work." The conversations with Clara began to change Enrique's perspective. He started to value small moments more and reconsider his priorities. The relationship between the two became a sincere and unexpected friendship, marked by a mutual understanding of each other's pains and hopes. A few weeks after the conspiracy plan was uncovered, Enrique faced another personal challenge: the imminent separation from his wife. The situation was complicated, and one of the challenges was the custody of his young son, Miguel. In the midst of intense negotiations and without an immediate solution for who would care for the boy, Enrique had no choice but to bring him to work. Miguel, a shy and sensitive child, was visibly uncomfortable in the corporate environment. He clung to his father's legs, his eyes wide with fear. Enrique, concerned about the situation, remembered Clara and the calm she always seemed to exude. He asked Clara to take care of Miguel while he handled some urgent matters. Clara accepted the task with a warm smile. "Of course, Mr. Enrique, I'll be happy to take care of him. Come, Miguel, let's go somewhere quieter," she said, extending her hand to the boy. Miguel, still hesitant, took Clara's hand and followed her to a break room. Once there, Clara knelt to be at the boy's level and began to talk to him calmly. "You know, Miguel, I've been scared of new places and people too. But sometimes the things that seem scary end up being really cool. How about we draw?" She picked up some papers and colored pencils she found in the room. Miguel gave a small smile and began to draw, while Clara watched him. The comfortable silence was interrupted when Miguel, with a soft voice, asked, "Why are you here, Mrs. Clara?" Clara smiled. "Well, I've worked here for a long time, taking care of everything to keep it clean and tidy. And sometimes, I help special people like you feel at home." Miguel seemed to think about this for a moment, then timidly asked, "Do you know how to sing?" Clara laughed quietly, surprised by the question. "Who told you that?" "I heard some people talking. They said you sing beautifully." Clara felt warmth in her heart. "I do like to sing, Miguel. Would you like to hear a song?" Miguel nodded, and Clara began to sing a lullaby her mother used to sing to her. Her voice filled the room with a softness that seemed magical. Miguel, who had initially been restless, began to calm down, his eyes slowly closing. As Miguel snuggled in to sleep, Enrique, who had finished his tasks, entered the room. He was surprised to see his son asleep in Clara's arms. But what impressed him the most was Clara's voice. He stopped at the door, listening to the soft melody that evoked a distant and cherished memory. When Clara finished the song, Enrique approached, visibly moved. "That song, my mother used to sing it to me when I was little. Where did you learn it?" he asked, trying to contain his emotion. Clara looked at Enrique, surprised by his reaction. "It was a song my mother used to sing to me too. I think it's one of those melodies that pass from generation to generation. Enrique nodded, still absorbing the impact of the music and Clara's comforting presence. It's incredible how a simple song can bring back so many memories, he said, more to himself than to Clara. The two were silent for a moment, both reflecting on life's strange connections. Clara, with her serenity and wisdom, seemed to bring a sense of peace that Enrique hadn't experienced in a long time. He sat next to her, watching Miguel sleep peacefully. "Thank you for taking care of him," Enrique said, with a tone of genuine gratitude. "You have a gift, Clara, not just for music but for touching people's lives in a way few can." Clara smiled, feeling deep recognition. "Sometimes the simplest things can have the greatest impact," she replied softly. In the days that followed, Enrique couldn't stop thinking about the inexplicable connection he felt with Clara. The music, the voice, her presence, everything evoked memories of his childhood and his mother, whom he had lost many years ago. He couldn't ignore the feeling that there was something more behind this coincidence. Determined to understand what was happening, Enrique began to investigate Clara's past. Enrique discreetly asked Human Resources to provide him with information about Clara without raising suspicion. What he discovered left him perplexed. Clara's real name was Maria Clara, and her mother's name was the same as he remembered his own mother's. The coincidences were too many to ignore, and Enrique found himself faced with a possibility that seemed impossible, but which he needed to explore. With a racing heart and a mind full of questions, Enrique invited Clara for a more personal conversation. He wanted to hear directly from her about her life, her memories, and especially about her mother. Clara, sensing the seriousness of Enrique's tone, accepted the invitation. They met in a private room, away from the curious eyes of other employees. Enrique began the conversation cautiously, asking about Clara's life before she started working at the company. Clara, though a little hesitant, began to talk about her youth, her dream of becoming a singer, and the trauma that led her to abandon that dream. She spoke of the difficult relationship with her family and how, after her mother's death, she distanced herself from everyone to start her life over in another place. As he listened to Clara, Enrique felt a mixture of emotions. Every detail she shared seemed to align with his own story. The date of Clara's mother's death coincided with the time when he had lost his mother. And then, when Clara mentioned her mother's full name, Enrique was left speechless. It was the same name as his mother, whom he believed had died many years ago. The revelation hit them both like a bomb. Clara, shocked, began to put the pieces together. She had lost contact with her family due to painful and complicated circumstances. She never imagined that her son, whom she thought was lost forever, had grown up to become a successful businessman. And Enrique, for his part, was faced with the possibility that his mother, whom he thought had died, was alive and right in front of him. Enrique asked, with a trembling voice, if it was possible that Clara was really his mother. Tears began to stream down Clara's face. She confirmed that she had a son who was presumed dead in an accident. But as she heard the dates and details provided by Enrique, she realized it had been a mistake, a terrible mistake that had separated them for decades. The two embraced, crying for all the lost years, for the pains and regrets. The emotion of the moment was overwhelming. For Clara, it was like waking up from a nightmare. For Enrique, it was like finding a lost part of himself. The reunion was bittersweet, marked by the joy of reconnecting and the sadness of the irretrievable time. After the initial shock, they began to talk about the past, trying to fill in the gaps of the years they had lost. Clara spoke about the hardships she faced, the isolation and the pain of losing contact with her son. Enrique shared his own pain and the feeling of emptiness he had always carried, believing his mother had died. "Life has been a series of unexpected events," Clara said, wiping away the tears. "I distanced myself from everything and everyone to avoid more pain. I never imagined that fate would bring me back to you, Enrique." Enrique held Clara's hand, feeling the connection that had always been there, but that neither of them had been aware of. "I always felt something was missing, a part of me that I never understood. Now I know it was you, Mom." The two spent the rest of the afternoon together, talking and laughing, sharing stories they never had the chance to share. It was a new beginning for both of them, an opportunity to rebuild what had been lost. Clara and Enrique's lives changed radically after the revelation that they were mother and son. The news quickly spread throughout the company, leaving everyone in shock. Clara, who had always been a humble and discreet figure, suddenly became the center of attention. Her co-workers, who had previously been curious about her musical talent, now looked at her with a mixture of respect and admiration. Enrique, on the other hand, was determined to make up for lost time. He invited Clara to live with him and Miguel, and she accepted with a mix of joy and apprehension. It was a difficult decision, considering all the years they had lost, but both were committed to rebuilding their relationship. Clara's presence in the house brought new life to the place. Miguel, who had already grown fond of her, loved spending time with his newly discovered grandmother. The days began to fill with simple but precious moments. Clara rediscovered the pleasure of singing, no longer as a way to hide her feelings, but as an expression of joy. Enrique, who had once been so focused on his business, started to value family time more. He and Clara spent hours talking about their lives, sharing stories and memories. These conversations often led to laughter and tears as they both tried to process what had happened. One night, while Clara was singing a lullaby to Miguel, Enrique quietly entered the room and sat in the chair beside her. He watched the scene with a smile on his face, feeling a peace he hadn't experienced in a long time. When Clara finished the song, Miguel was already asleep. "You have a beautiful voice, Mom," Enrique said in a low tone, careful not to wake his son. "It's never too late to follow our dreams. Have you thought about singing again? In public?" Clara sighed, looking affectionately at Miguel. "Music has always been a part of me, but I put it aside for so long. I'm not sure if I have the courage to expose myself like that again. But maybe it's time to leave the past behind and embrace what makes me happy." Enrique smiled. "I'll be here to support you, whatever your decision. Life has given us a second chance, and I want to make the most of every moment." Clara also became more actively involved in Miguel's life. She told him stories, taught him songs, and even cooked dishes that Enrique vaguely remembered from his childhood. The house, which had once seemed a place of tension and silence, was now filled with laughter and music. Amarillo, the parrot, also became an important part of this new life, repeating kind words and songs that Clara and Miguel sang. Beyond her personal life, Clara decided to share her musical talent with the community. Enrique, supporting his mother's decision, helped organize events where she could sing. Clara performed in nursing homes, hospitals, and community events, bringing joy and comfort to many people. Her voice, which had once been a source of pain and regret, now became a tool for healing and happiness. The journey for Clara and Enrique to rebuild their relationship was not easy. There were many moments of difficulty, especially when they faced the complexities of their feelings and the repercussions of the past. However, both were determined to make it work. They attended family therapy to deal with unresolved traumas and emotions, learning to communicate openly and honestly. The reunion with Clara also brought significant changes for Enrique. He began to reevaluate his priorities and the way he managed the company. Clara's life story and his own experience of almost losing everything led him to become a more compassionate and considerate leader. He implemented policies in the company to ensure a fairer and more humane work environment, valuing each employee as a person with a unique story. In the end, Clara and Enrique found a new way to live together, one that honored the past but also looked to the future with hope. They knew they could never recover the lost years, but they were determined to make every new moment count. Music, which had once been a source of pain, was now a symbol of healing and connection for both. And so, the story of Clara, the cleaner with an extraordinary voice, and Enrique, the businessman who rediscovered the value of family, became a life lesson for everyone around them. A lesson about the importance of never giving up on seeking the truth, valuing what truly matters, and never underestimating the power of love and forgiveness.